How do you design an interesting character? This is a question I still ask myself most days, even though it's my job. And do I have an answer? Well, yes and no. I say yes and no because there isn't necessarily one correct path to having an interesting character. There's a variety of factors which can be considered and utilised to your advantage to make the design process more fun and successful. When you ask Google what the most important aspect of character design is, the keyword that pops up more often than not was memorability. Do I agree that this is the most important aspect? Some of the most successful TV shows, films, and video games in the world all have extremely memorable characters, so memorable that you can identify them through silhouette alone. When I think deeper into why some of my favourite character designs are so memorable, a recurring aspect of them that I notice is the simplicity of the design. There's more emphasis on shape language and a less is more approach to the details. It can be quite difficult nowadays to create a truly memorable character that stands out in the crowd. Knowing how to simplify the character enough to show the important visual information about them, but being able to keep the design interesting as a whole. But the question I sometimes ask myself is, do I need my characters to look memorable in order for their designs to succeed? Should the intrigue of your character come purely from design alone? To some extent, you could argue yes, as the visuals are an important part of attracting an audience. However, a character is not defined purely by appearance alone, and I think it's sometimes about how you tell the story through the character, which helps to generate intrigue, and it's definitely what got me invested in all my favourite characters. This is where medium can come into play. How is the story being told? In what form is the character being shown? This can have a huge impact on the final design of the character and what they are like as a whole. Is it for animation? In that case, not only do you need to consider the character's design, but their walk and movement cycle and voice acting, which can be an opportunity to add another layer to their personality. Typically, animated characters for TV shows and films have a more simplified design, depending on the type of animation, but the way they animate the characters' movements and how the voice actors can deliver these lines can really help to engage the audience just as much as their visual appearance. Even in graphic novels and comics, where there isn't any motion, a lot can be told about a character through the way they conduct and express themselves, communicate with others and their environments, which the audience can emotionally connect to. If you're creating a character as part of a bigger world and story, this could help to give you more ideas on what their design should look like. What are their goals, their aspirations, their personality? Do they have a job? Do they like their job? All of these compose their design, which matches who they are in the world. Circling back to the question of is less more, when it comes to things like figure and gesture drawing, many artists recommend trying to draw with as few lines as possible. This is a great exercise to really observe the figure and decide what the most important aspects are. There's more focus on getting the feeling of life and movement in the pose rather than the exact anatomical proportions and structure, although that is something that is valuable to learn as well. Can the same be said for actual character design? Well, it depends. Having a simplified character means more attention is drawn to particular visual signifiers, which can tell us a bit more about the character. Sometimes when more and more visual signifiers and details are added, it can be more difficult to understand who they are and it can overwhelm the whole design. Additionally, it does make it more easy to draw the character when there aren't too many details to think about. But this isn't true in every case though, as having a character with lots of detail and visual elements can work in the character's storytelling, especially if you're able to construct the details in an interesting way. It's kind of something that you just sort of need to decide yourself and make the final call on. Another interesting thought is characters as a collective. This is where I think simplicity can work really well in character design. The design of a character is one thing, but what about when you're putting them beside all of your other characters? It's almost as if together your characters can work as the final design. If they're going to be seen next to each other a lot, being able to complement each other is a great visual advantage, and this is where having a more detailed character paired with a more simplified character can work really effectively. Although this can present its own challenges, especially when you not only have to consider main characters, but background characters. Even though they may not necessarily have dialogue or plot, background characters are a part of your world's visual identity, and you want their design to be interesting, but not so much that they overwhelm the main characters or look out of place. But you don't want them to be too bland, as that can break the sense of immersion in the world. I'm currently working on background characters for my own personal projects, so this is a topic I'm going to try and talk more about soon in another video, but for this one I'll move on to the last topic. So, do you need to do art studies to be a character designer, a concept artist? Well, you don't. There isn't an exam to becoming an artist that I'm aware of. You don't ever have to look at an anatomy book or learn anything about fundamentals and colour theory. I would personally recommend, though, to utilise studying. Studying is the best tool to developing your character designs and concept art, and the main reason for me personally being that it makes it easier and fun. The frustration I would feel to my very core when my characters weren't turning out great occurred significantly less when I had grasped a good understanding of basic anatomy and perspective. Also, you can study however you want. Lots of amazing artists on YouTube and online post their own techniques to make art studies and character designs easier. There are so many different methods, and you can find ones which work really well for you, and you're pretty much already learning anyway with every new piece of artwork you make. It's just that studying more specific topics can help to accelerate and improve the learning process. Learning about colour palettes and how to apply it to your characters can really help to elevate your designs, and I'll be honest, colour palette is never something I've been confident at. I just sort of mess around with the colours until I get something I like. What I find though personally helps is exploring some of your favourite character designs and deconstructing their colour palette to see how it was applied. You pretty much never finish studying, and I'm constantly learning new things each day, and that's why I enjoy creating my personal projects, because they're a way for me to practice topics I'm not comfortable with, whilst coming up with fun designs for my world building, which I really enjoy sharing with everyone. So, is there a true blueprint to character design? You can probably guess the answer, that there is a blueprint, but it's one that you make yourself. This is a good thing though, as character design, like art in general, is a collective of experiences, experiments, developments, and successes. You can learn what is valuable to you and use that to build up your own personal method of designing at your pace. You probably also hear this quite a lot, but just don't overthink it. Some of my best designs really just come from me messing around with some themes and references, and I know you want to create that perfect design straight away, but when you look at most concept art and character design from any form of media, it usually goes through many stages of development and ideas. So if you're creating a specific type of character and you can't seem to land on a design or nothing feels like it's working, just try a different approach, because sometimes changing up the visuals drastically can actually help you find the design that works much faster. Something else I really want to talk more about, which I'm surprised that I didn't mention in the video, is art style, as I feel like this is a really relevant part of character design, but I want to create another video dedicated to this particular topic, as I feel there's quite a lot to cover on it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to bring more designs along for the next video. Thank you and bye!